promise there's still good in me. I know I've done wrong. Been away from the city and I know it's been too long, too long. Sorry I changed on you. I'm sorry I changed. Sorry I changed on you.
AO01.
A man who authorities say stabbed his girlfriend and left her to die in the desert has pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter. In 2018, California City Police were called to a desert area north of Poppy Boulevard and west of Mitchell Road regarding a stabbing victim. They found 20-year-old Veronica Medina suffering from serious injuries. She was pronounced dead at Antelope Valley Hospital. 27-year-old Jonathan Rivera was arrested a month later. He pleaded no contest on May 13th. Rivera was arrested a month later. He pleaded no contest on May 13th, was arrested a month later. He pleaded no contest on May 13th in exchange for the dismissal of a charge of first-degree murder, and he faces a 28-year prison term. His sentencing is set for June 15th.
Hello, folks. Do you ever wonder why people sometimes plead no contest instead of guilty? And did you wonder if there was any real difference between pleading guilty and no contest? Watch this video and I'll explain it to you, and I'll tell you what the very tiny little difference is. My name is Andrew Williams. I'm a board-certified practicing criminal defense attorney in the Houston, Texas area. I have handled hundreds of cases with people charged from everything from speeding tickets to capital murder. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what the difference is between pleading guilty and pleading no contest. In a criminal case, there's no real difference between pleading guilty and no contest. If you plead guilty to a charge, you are found guilty and you have a final conviction on your record. If you plead no contest to a charge, you are found guilty and you have a final conviction on your record. A final conviction, at least in Texas, stays on your record forever and will never go away. The only real difference you would see in pleading no contest as opposed to guilty is in the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure 27.02. In that, it says if you plead no contest, you cannot have that plea of no contest used against you later on in a civil proceeding. Whereas if you plead guilty, that guilty plea can be used against you later on as an admission of liability. Now, a quick example would be if you were involved in an accident and you got a speeding ticket arising from that accident, and you went to court and you pled guilty to the speeding ticket. In other words, you pled guilty to speeding. If you get sued by the other party for damages because of the accident, that plea of guilt can be used against you later in the civil court as an admission of liability. However, if you were to plead no contest to the speeding ticket, you would still be found guilty, just like if you were pleading guilty, and you would have a conviction on your record for speeding. But because you pled no contest, that plea of no contest could not be used against you later on in a civil case for damages arising out of that accident. So that's the only real benefit between pleading guilty and pleading no contest. As I said earlier, for criminal purposes, it really doesn't matter if you plead no contest or guilty. It's still a conviction. It can still be used against you. And in some cases, if you were to get in trouble again for something and that case came up, that prior case that you had a conviction for, they could use that prior conviction to enhance your punishment in the new case that you got tried for or you were accused of. and that could make your punishment worse. Now, the court in the new case is not going to go back and look around and see, well, you know, this person pled guilty instead of no contest or anything like that. The court will only look to see if you have a conviction, and that's it. The judges don't care if you plead guilty or plead no contest. You're still convicted. All right, so just in summary, pleading no contest will help you in a civil case later on down the line, and they cannot use that against you as an admission of liability. Whereas a plea of guilty could be used against you as an admission of liability in a civil case, not in a criminal case. Now, I hope that helped you understand a little bit better about the difference between pleading guilty and pleading no contest. My name is Andrew Williams. I am creating these videos to help you understand some basic criminal concepts.
Tribute to Common Peace in War Times. We're going to dig into this article that was written by Tony Ortega, August 9th, 2022, and this reads, Rizza Islam sisters plead no contest, leaving him last facing trial in Medicare fraud case. This is from the underground bunker. All right, here go Mr. Faker, Mr. Curly Head, non-kinky hair. I told y'all, got all these people who are not kinky head infiltrating all these black different groups and using our power and gifts of life bringing to anything we get involved in to rise up in the ranks. Nearly 7 years ago, 7 years, we broke the news that several members of Scientologist Hannah Islam's family had been charged with felonies. California state investigators alleged that Islams had been ripping off the medical program with the use of a jackleg Scientology Narconon drug rehab in Compton, California. Years later, a detailed preliminary hearing in Los Angeles Superior Court featured the state laying out its case that Hannah, rest in peace, Islam, was the ringleader, and that her son Ronnie, known as Rizza, and daughter Zakia and Nemat had also taken part in the scheme, which made use of unwitting high school students and some helpful local high school educators who lost their jobs over it. According to the state, Hannah, rest in peace, and her kids had found their way to use the Narconon rehab they had started at the notorious World Literacy Crusade in order to file false claims that over several years amounted to about $4 million stolen from the state. Adding to the court drama was that for a while, Hanan, rest in peace, and her son Rizza had tried out some bizarre and disruptive sovereign citizen stunts, claiming the court had no jurisdiction over them, which got them both stints in jail. We couldn't really understand why the case was put off year after year. The reason it's been put off because he got Scientology behind them. When you dig into the Scientology history, they was known for, I think they broke into the FBI facility one time some years ago, and they had a lot of people that was defecting from them ended up being killed and dying in hot tubs with hot water and all types of stuff. Look them up. They will harass you. They go the whole nine. So that's the reason why he ain't fell off yet, because Scientology and Nation Islam need him as far as bringing more people in to get charged $30,000 and more for these fake auditing schemes, and Farrakhan them sending his people in there as well is getting kickback in the background from that. All this is foolishness. All right. We couldn't really understand why the case was put off year after year. The state, after all, said that it had piles of evidence that Hanan, rest in peace, and her kids had run the scheme. But there was always some excuse. One of the defense attorneys died, for example, and Hanan, rest in peace, claimed that she was dying of cancer. Well, that did turn out to be true. In March, Hanan died of cancer at 62, and we wondered if it would take the wind out of the case. she had not only been the ringleader according to the prosecutors, but she also been convicted of 2 previous felonies, and so was probably looking at a major penalty if convicted. Rizza, meanwhile, has become quite notorious on his own over these past 7 years, an interesting figure who grew up in Scientology, but also embraced the Nation of Islam and its leader, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Like I said, I told y'all, this fool is into 2 religious cults. And you know you confused. That's like saying you're a Christian and a Muslim, or you're a Satanist and a Buddhist. I mean, they doing the most these days. But having one religion ain't enough. You gotta have 2. And in 2021, Rizza really hit the big name as one of the 12 biggest sources of online disinformation about vaccine at a time, when that kind of disinformation was literally killing some people during a worldwide pandemic. What it mixed this story was medical fraud charges, Scientology, the Nation of Islam, sovereign citizen craziness in court, and even the notoriety of a major anti-vax disinformation campaign. And has always mystified us why, over the last 7 years, not a single word about any of this has showed up in the Los Angeles Times, even though it's taking place in that city. That's because Scientology got deep pockets and they all working together. That's why it ain't been brought out, because then it would expose other people who are not black mixed up in this foolishness. Well, whatever. We'll keep it to ourselves if we must. Anyway, we have now obtained some court documents showing that on July 14th, Rizza's 2 older sisters, Nemat 45 and Zakia 40, entered no contest pleas, which it was explained to them the court would consider guilty pleas. Nemat was allowed to plead to a misdemeanor and will in a year have the case dropped against her entirely if she keeps out of trouble. Zakia pleaded no contest to a felony and was sentenced to 150 hours community service, but if she too steers clear of trouble, in a year she will be allowed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor. So we just had the 2 videos I had ran in the beginning, just for, clarity reasons and educational purposes. Taking a no contest or pleading guilty is the same thing. So if his sisters pled guilty without pleading guilty and got charged for such, and Rizza was involved, he's guilty too. And he keep pushing it off, or his handlers keep pushing it off. So with Hanan, rest in peace, deceased, and the 2 sisters out of the case, that leaves only Rizza, 32. According to the evidence presented at the preliminary hearing, Rizza's role was to organize writers who were hired to produce fake reports about drug counseling that never happened. Those reporters were then submitted to Medicare for reimbursement. Previously scheduled for August 22nd, a readiness hearing for Rizza has been moved to August 25th. According to one source we consulted, a readiness hearing is held only a week or 2 before an actual trial would start. So he go on a trial. With the flamboyant Nation of Islam huckster really be facing trial soon, so many years after being accused of stealing medical insurance money from the state? We are very curious to find out. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit more context to this story. We'll be back after these few messages. True to call them peace in wartime.
Gentlemen of the jury, all that needs to be said is this.
Hey!
What the hell is wrong with you people? Every famous nigga that gets arrested is not Nelson Mandela? Yes, the government conspires to put a lot of innocent black men in jail on fallacious charges. But R. Kelly is not one of those men. We all know the nigga can sing. But what happened to standards? What happened to bare minimums? You a fan of R. Kelly? You want to help R. Kelly? then get some counseling for R. Kelly. Introduce him to some older women. Hide his camcorder. But don't pretend like the man is a hero.
Family, today we come here in this live stream as always with the facts to crack your back. And so we're here again, on another episode of Nation of Islam and the fuckery that they like to conduct. Okay, so to anybody who, because I know that this interview that I'm finna do is gonna bring a lot of viewers to this channel. Anybody who's normally on this channel, y'all pretty much know my stance on the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, the Church of Scientology, etc. But today, okay, I've been fortunate enough to be able to connect with a very, very, very high-minded individual for us to dig deeper into the details of this situation in regards to, the partnership or, the interactions between the Nation of Islam as well as the Church of Scientology. So as I get ready to introduce my guest and allow him to, give a little bit of his background in regards to his blog and, his stance and his position. As you all know, Rizza Islam was recently arrested and my guest was actually in the courtroom. So I like to introduce my guest, Jeffrey Augustine, onto my platform.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show, Farrell. I like your work. It's very factual. And I reached out to you because this does concern the Church of Scientology. I primarily view as a transnational criminal syndicate.
Yes, sir.
My blog is called the Scientology Money Project. Your listeners can find it at scientologymoneyproject.com. And my goal has been to use nothing but facts, court documents, IRS documents, to be Scientology documents, to offer proof, to people of what the church is doing.
Yes, sir.
And I have been following Rizza Islam, Nation of Islam, Church of Scientology for a very long time. So where I reached out to you, Rizza Islam and his mother Hanan, his sisters Nemat and Zakaya, and someone who was working with them down Beverly, Washington, were charged in this $3.8 million Medi-Cal scam out here in California.
Correct.
So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, how it began, what are the origins.
Yes, sir. And before we even get into that, I want to also, give people a background. You have, and you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have actually appeared on Leah Remini's, if I'm saying it correctly, Leah Remini's Emmy Award-winning show, Scientology in the Aftermath, correct?
Yes, I appeared on Leah Remini's show, Scientology in the Aftermath, all 3 seasons, and that show was so important because it laid bare how Scientology harms people. It doesn't matter what color you are, what group you belong to, what race you are. It harms anyone it comes into contact with. It destroys people.
That's right.
And the damage it does to people financially, emotionally, psychologically, the way it breaks up families.
That's right.
It's a very wicked, evil, malicious system. It's a killing system. It rapes people at the level of the spirit. And Leah's show won an Emmy because she so bravely spoke out. And the church fought every step of the way. They engaged in their trademark fair game, character assassination, hate websites, smears, attacks. Because, the dark does not like to be brought to the light.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Because of the quality of her work and that of her co-host, Mike Rinder, who was at one time the number 3 man in the Church of Scientology International. That's why it won an Emmy, because of the outstanding quality of the work, telling the truth.
Right. That's right. last bit of piece on your background, so that people who may not be familiar with you can understand how certified you are in this area. You have been dedicated to the exposure of the Church of Scientology for 15 years, correct?
Yes, I started speaking out publicly in 2005.
But jumping into the first question, here it comes. How did the criminal case against Rizza Islam and his co-defendants begin, and what are its roots?
Where this all began is with Alfredi Johnson. Now, he claims to be a Baptist minister, but he's a Scientologist. I've never been able to find any evidence of his ordination from any church body, so I presume he's self-ordained. I could be incorrect on that. I'm willing to be corrected, but I've never seen where his ordination comes from. So in 1992, Alfredi Johnson began the World Literacy Crusade in Compton, California. This was a Scientology center that offered L. Ron Hubbard's so-called study tech, and also a drug treatment program, which you would call Narconon. And Alfredi Johnson is the man who brought Isaac Hayes into the Church of Scientology. And what's interesting, when Isaac Hayes got into the church, he told the church leader, David Miscavige, there's not enough black people in Scientology. And so they started thinking about how they could bring more black people into Scientology. And Alfredi Johnson was working in the community, and he met up with Tony Muhammad, who was the Western Regional Manager of Nation of Islam out here in LA. And they got to know each other, right? And as they tell the story online, there's a YouTube video where they talk about Tony Muhammad was beaten by the LAPD during a candlelight vigil for a young black man who had been killed by the LAPD. And he got quite a beating, apparently, and he decided, he was just going to drop out of activism. But Alfredi said, hey, let me get you some Scientology auditing. And Tony Muhammad said, yeah, that really worked. I liked it. And when he went back to see Louis Farrakhan said, whatever you've got going on, Tony, I want some of it. And that's how Farrakhan, who'd been fighting prostate cancer, got into the Church of Scientology, started getting Scientology auditing. And that's sort of weaving it together. Alfredi had the World Literacy Crusade.
Yes.
Isaac Hayes support, who served as an ambassador for the World Literacy Crusade when he was alive. And then the Nation of Islam gets involved. Okay, well, so the World Literacy Crusade, so the people saw 2008 to 2010 how Louis Farrakhan insisted that anyone in the Nation of Islam who wasn't willing to do Dianetics, and they introduced it as Dianetics. That's how Farrakhan rolled it out as Dianetics, so it didn't seem as offensive as Scientology, right?
Right.
And that's the use of language. Dianetics seems safe compared to Scientology. So there was this old PR campaign to roll it out. Now, World Literacy Crusade, in around this time frame, spun out an organization called the American Health and Education Clinic, AHEC. And this is really where the fraud began. American Health and Education Clinic. It shared the same building and personnel, as was testified about in court by the state investigator. So World Literacy Crusade and American Health and Education Clinic were indistinguishable, right? They're the same operation. American Health was run by Hanan Islam, who is Alfredi's business partner. And so Hanan was the president of American Health and Education Clinic, and Hanan has 10 kids. So she had several of her kids working there, including Rizza Islam, Sakaya Islam, and Nimat.
Right.
And what they did, this whole thing, Hanan recruited, she went into the Compton Unified School District, and she recruited educators, two principals, some coaches. She basically paid them money for access to innocent high school students, right? So what they did, once these corrupt educators, one principal took $60,000 payday, they would order students, probably 50 at a time, to go sit in a classroom, and Rizza would come in. This was testified in court, and I was there during the preliminary criminal trial.
Yes, sir.
I was there for all 4 days of it. I was also there for all the events leading up to it where, as you mentioned, the charges were filed in 2015, but Rizza and his family they all had separate criminal defense attorneys. They tried to get delay after delay after delay, hoping the charges would go away. But you don't magic charges away, right? And the law is after you. You can't magically make them go away by delaying. So anyway, Rizza would go show a 45 to 55-minute film to a group of high school students who didn't need drug treatment. These kids were not on drugs. They didn't need drug treatment. They were just made to go watch a film by the principal. And then Rizza would get the sign-in sheet, so all the students had to sign in. And then what would happen, he would leave, so he spent, total 55 minutes there. He would leave. And then what would happen, as we heard in the preliminary criminal trial from the California Department of Justice investigator, these sign-in sheets would go back to American Health and Education clinics, and there was a suite F where there were ghostwriters. And these ghostwriters would create all these fictional treatment programs for these kids whose names were on the sign-in sheets. So they would bill the 55-minute film at 3 hours. So they would bill the state for 3 hours, and then they would show all these bogus progress reports to add more billing. So just for, Rizza going out and showing a film, he and his mom and his sisters would bill the state $6,000 plus additional monies.
Wow.
So that over a period of the scheme from 2010 to 2013, which is 4 calendar years, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, that's how they billed $3.8 million for doing virtually nothing except showing films and creating fake case histories on students.
Well,
that's the essence of the crime. And it was all Scientology-based materials.
Right.
And in fact, as happened at the court, people who worked at World Literacy Crusade, the employees were forced to take these same courses so they could be billed, they could bill the state for their employees going through these courses at $15,000 per head. I mean, this is as criminal as it gets.
That's right.
And what the investigators said at the preliminary criminal trial, these ghostwriters will testify. The educators have already, pleaded to charges, and done their time.
Right.
And some of the other defendants. So there's going to be, at the criminal trial, we can expect to see a lot of witnesses saying, yes, I engaged in crime. I did my time. I paid for my, crimes. So the evidence is so overwhelming, but that's how it began. It's a Scientology-based white-collar criminality, financial crime.
It happens. It happens, bro. It happens. Just, anyway. All right, check me out. Hey, kill it off for me. Let's end this. I'm about to end this man's whole career. What career? But I'm not a rapper. What career? Look. You got a point right here. Here it is. Boom. Bam. Bop. Bada bop. Boom. Pow.
Things change and they rearrange, but I know that I always got you. Say you stay round for a nigga, cause you down for a nigga, and you even got a figure too. Yeah, that's right, I love the way you feel, and I love the way you smell. Got you in my hands and I can tell you ain't going out nowhere. Death grip so tight my hands begin to swell, and I know you only wish me well. Man, I know there's some people they wanna see me fail. Believe it or not, they wanna see a nigga up in jail. But if I got you, then I know I got the bail. Even make me hit the climb when these hoes hit the cell. Oh yeah. Everybody always asking who I'm loving when they already know who it is. I can say your name out loud and I know I'ma get reaction still, cause everybody know the deal. Cause I'm in love with the money, I do. Never call it work when it's for you, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. I'm in love with the money, it's all true. When I be feeling broke, you beats the truth, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. They judge it till they got it. Same folks that hand you bills and hope you spot it. So quick to put their hands all in your pocket. Man, the same niggas get ghost on you when you be out here trying to get yourself deposits. Man, they got to stop it. Yeah, I know they see that money get my smell. I walk into the room and look them in the eyes, and I can see that they can tell. Yeah, they know I know my money well. I never kiss and tell. I just forget about the paper trail. Man, I really hate it when they call you dime. Throw you in the air and watch you fall, but I be damned, cause I'm gon' catch you every time. And what's the point of money left behind? Forget that, cause what's the point of even having crime? What's the point in wasting time? Everybody know the money ain't my God, because I already know who he is. If I ask the Lord to send me blessings down from heaven up above, is that what he really chose to give? I'm in love with the money, I do. Never call it work when it's for you, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. I'm in love with the money, it's all true. When I be feeling broke, you beats the truth, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. They judge it till they got it. The money, they only wanna judge it till they. If you in love with the, make a nigga say I do. I do. Man, I really hate it when they call you dime. Throw you in the air and watch you fall, but I be damned, cause I'm gon' catch you every time. And what's the point of money left behind? Forget that, cause what's the point of even having crime? What's the point in wasting time? Everybody know the money ain't my God, because I already know who he is. If I ask the Lord to send me blessings down from heaven up above, is that what he really chose to give? I'm in love with the money, I do. Never call it work when it's for you, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. I'm in love with the money, it's all true. When I be feeling broke, you beats the truth, cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. They judge it till they got it. The money, they only wanna judge it till they. If you in love with the, make a nigga say I do. I do. Cause I'm in love with the money. Make a nigga say I do. They only wanna judge it till they got it. I'm in love with the money.